Nashville at night glows like a carnival of electric promises, but every beam of neon hides a silent invoice. While rock stars smashed guitars and Hollywood divas struck magazine poses, country's most magnetic women stepped onto Opry boards in gowns so tight the seams prayed for mercy. Beauty became their cover charge, curves their marketing plan, and voices the soundtrack for a nation convinced that heartbreak sounds sweeter when sung by someone gorgeous. Managers measured bustlines with tailor tape, labels insured hairdos, and photographers angled lights to turn perspiration into shimmer. Yet behind each flawless pose waited a contract clause, a gossip columnist, or a seatbelt that might fail at 70 miles per hour. Tonight we ride the midway from glittering premieres to shadowed exits, tracing 20 legends who sold millions and paid in bruises, rumors, or headlines etched on tombstones. Listen closely. The music you love was bought with flesh, stitched glitter, and courage disguised as mascara. Their stories pulse beneath every steel guitar bend, waiting like ghosts in the hush between radio commercials, daring you to hear the cost. Dolly Parton arrived on Lower Broadway dressed like a sugar rush sunrise, a glittering corset hugging her famously generous bust above a 19-inch waist that made skeptics squint. Reporters treated her like a living funhouse mirror, jotting numbers instead of lyrics. But Dolly weaponized their narrow focus with a joke sharp enough to slice through polyester. Every wisecrack about her figure turned into free commercial airtime, and by the time the flashbulbs cooled, she had written 2 more smashes and mailed royalty checks home to Sevier County. Beauty paid the cover charge. The brain behind it built a $90 million theme park. Tammy Wynette understood the barter system of looks and pain when she staggered from her Cadillac one night, mascara running, claiming masked men had dragged her into the weeds. Tabloids gasped, detectives doubted, and Nashville whispered she had borrowed yesterday's bruises to dodge a debt. Yet when she stepped onto the Opry circle in velvet bell-bottoms, her fragile shoulders and full bust framing a microphone like a lifeline, the crowd forgave everything at the first quiver of "Stand By Your Man." Controversy sold vinyl just as fast as virtue. Watching from the wings, Loretta Lynn, coal dust still ghosting her cuticles, wore gowns she stitched herself, each seam hugging a mountain-grown curve no boutique understood. She strutted on stage like a frontier queen, raven bouffant piled high, busline bold enough to make station managers clutch their clipboards. But when she sang about birth control in the pill, that voluptuous silhouette became a battering ram against radio censors. Loretta proved you could swing a guitar like a pickaxe, dazzle in sequins, and still smash patriarchal bedrock to rubble. Her laughter cracked the dome of the Opry that night, but nobody guessed how fast rhinestones can shatter. The spotlight was already sliding toward new queens who would swap silk for seatbelts and discover that clouds show no mercy. The next song begins with a propeller-cutting dawn fog and ends with a hush so heavy it still rattles quarters inside lonely jukeboxes across America. Patsy Cline boarded the single-engine Piper as if it were just another taxi, brushing imaginary lint from her ruby-fringed cowgirl suit. Curves poured into crimson fabric that shimmered like fresh blood under hanger lights. The pilot warned of weather, but Patsy, all hurricane hair and confidence, laughed that low laugh fans swore came from somewhere south of her heart. 30 minutes later, metal met timber, and the songbird's body, famed for its hourglass strength, lay silent among broken branches. The bust radio once marketed like a movie poster became a tragic headline that still echoes through vinyl hiss. Reba McEntire understood that arithmetic when another small plane fell 3 decades later, this time carrying her band. She watched smoke spiral over a California mountain, sequin shoulder pads still sparkling on stage, while beepers delivered shattering news. Ranch-tough muscles threatened to buckle, yet she straightened those broad shoulders and returned to the microphone the very next week, slimming her silhouette and her sound into something sleeker, steelier, unstoppable. Critics called it a reinvention. Reba called it survival. Dottie West's story proved the road can be cruel even with 4 wheels firmly on asphalt. Fiery red hair whipping in convertible wind, She sped toward the Opry, late for a show that carried her name. A sharp curve, a seatbelt left unlatched, and the woman whose flirtatious bustline once sold soft drink commercials was thrown forward into country's cruelest cautionary tale. In the hospital, she apologized for the inconvenience as nurses adjusted gowns over bruised curves. Days later, she was gone. Her daughter Shelley kept singing, her movie star grin hiding fresh grief. Corseted bodices honoring her mother's fearless style while daring the industry to ever look away. One September evening in 1981, Bobby Gentry strode from a Las Vegas dressing room in black velvet that hugged an athletic frame, a subtle, hypnotic bust line gliding beneath spotlight fringe. She waved to a stagehand, slipped past the exit sign, and vanished from the music business so completely that Conspiracy became her final hit. Some say she married a secret billionaire. Others insist government agents offered protection after a scandal no one dares print. The only certainty is that the woman who wrote Ode to Billy Joe left nothing but an echo swaying above the Tallahatchie Bridge. Sylvia tasted disappearance by degrees. Tower tall and regal, she entered country radio swathed in satin gowns that swept the floor, her refined bust line floating like a whisper above cinched waists. Nobody rocketed her to platinum, but boardroom bickering tightened around her career like a corset pulled cruelly during rehearsal. Executives told her to bleach the hair, raise the hem, lower the key. She declined each demand until radio rotations shrank and release dates evaporated. Rather than plea, Sylvia reinvented herself as a life coach, teaching CEOs how to sing their truth without auto-tune. Linda Ronstadt chose transformation over retreat. With sable hair, desert rose skin, and a breezy California bust line that filled peasant blouses with bohemian ease, she dominated arenas where pyro cracked against her soprano. But fashion editors wanted thinner, glossier idols, so rumors of late-night coke sliders swirled through dressing rooms while Linda fought to keep her silhouette television-friendly. Then a neurological thief crept in, stealing first dexterity, then song. She traded spotlight for bookshelves and declared that music would always exist in her mind even if her voice refused the encore. Yet even silence cannot erase a legend. It only forces the world to lean closer for the echo ever. If Nashville sometimes felt like Sunday school, Jeannie C. Riley marched in wearing a miniskirt that scandalized every deacon on Music Row. Long tanned legs flashed beneath paisley fabric, and a perky bust hinted at rebellion with every camera click. Harper Valley PTA exploded up the charts, and so did gossip about hem lengths unfit for polite company. Jeannie smiled into microphones, announcing she was simply dressing for the weather, but inside she knew the outfit was artillery. Each time a radio programmer tut-tutted, sales spiked. 2,000 miles west, Wanda Jackson fired her own volley of glamour as grenade. Dubbed the Queen of Rockabilly, she spun across stages in fringe that shimmered like oil on water, razor-sharp waist framed above a vivacious bust that shook every time her hips attacked a guitar solo. The Grand Ole Opry asked her to tone it down. Wanda raised the fringe length instead, daring the starch collar crowd to blink first. She became a bridge between country, rock, and something hotter than either, proving that elegance can sweat. Then came Lynn Anderson, the ex-pageant darling who packaged rodeo grit in rose-colored chiffon. Built like an athlete, yet curved like a sculpture, she walked into I Never Promised You a Rose Garden, with platinum hair cascading over shoulders strong enough to tame show horses. Television adored her balanced bust line because it made every gown look couture, but the camera didn't capture exhaustion from relentless tours or the pressure to keep those measurements within a quarter inch. Lynn took out her frustrations on thoroughbreds at dawn, then powdered bruises before afternoon interviews. When a tabloid leaked her arrest for a late-night scuffle, radio programmers tut-tutted, but fans doubled ticket sales, intrigued by a beauty who could throw both roses and punches. Lynn later retreated to a ranch, choosing saddle leather over stage lights, yet her voice kept floating through truck stop speakers, proof that rebellion can smell as sweet as any bouquet. and somewhere beyond the horizon, a new tornado was already revving her dirt bike in the parking lot. Tanya Tucker revved into town on a borrowed dirt bike at 13, leather pants painted onto coltish hips, a budding bust that dared radio veterans to admit they felt a blush. Her smoky rasp dripped danger older singers spent decades pretending to possess. When she recorded Delta Dawn, producers hid whiskey bottles out of camera range while convincing America the rebellious cherub was safe for prime time. Fans bought the record, mothers gasped, and executives signed parental consent forms between rehearsals. Grace floated in on floor-length ebony hair a few seasons later, and its owner, Crystal Gale, glided across television sets like a willow bending in slow motion. Gowns dipped low in the back to display the living river of hair, yet their front lines framed a demure bust that made the whole spectacle feel like an apparition rather than an advertisement. Few noticed the boardroom skirmishes behind that gentle smile. Crystal insured her hair for millions, not out of vanity, but because it was leverage. Cut my budget, lose the waterfall. If Crystal was cool water, Barbara Mandrell was amplified electricity. Just 5'2", but sculpted by relentless aerobics, she toured with a band heavy enough to rattle stadium rafters. Sequined jumpsuits hugged a firm bust and micro waist, and shoulder pads made her sparkle like a chrome linebacker. After a near-fatal 1984 car crash left fractures from neck to ankle, she returned in thinner gowns and a softer fringe, the scars hidden beneath stage makeup thick as hope. She forgave the highway, explaining that faith and physical therapy shared one virtue, both hurt before they healed. Hosting primetime specials in royal blue spandex and stilettos that added 4 phantom inches, she twirled through pain while the crowd mistook grit for glamour. Few knew each high kick nudged titanium pins in her leg, but agony makes applause ring sweeter, and Barbara danced anyway. Outside her dressing room, whispers spread of 2 gospel-touched voices preparing to guide Nashville once again. June Carter Cash greeted every stranger as if they were cousins at a porch picnic, freckles sparkling beneath footlights that bounced off her modest prairie dress. Her bustline was gentle, almost shy compared to the thunder of her humor, yet the chemistry with Johnny Cash ignited like loose gunpowder whenever they shared a microphone. Tabloids labeled her the temptress who stole a man from another vow, but June countered with jokes sharper than barbed wire. When she wasn't singing, she was patching torn costumes and swapping baby bottles for guitar picks between verses. Connie Smith stood nearby, voice as smooth as fresh cream over biscuits. Yet behind the angelic eyes churned storms of sadness she kept buttoned beneath pastel gowns. Her curves were classic sweet, a poster for wholesome femininity. But after the spotlight dimmed, she fought dark thought nights that made her question whether tomorrow was worth opening the curtains. A whispered prayer and a gospel hymn pulled her back each time, and eventually she wore baptism white on stage, the silhouette of her bust growing modest as conviction rose. Jody Miller and Barbara Fairchild arrived from opposite ends of the chart, but landed in the same pew. Jody, girl next door sunshine with a compact figure wrapped in A-line joy, moved crowds with upbeat anthems before Nashville's fickle thumb turned downward. She found new purpose singing in church parking lots, her modest bustline now framed by choir robes instead of television framing. Barbara Fairchild followed, auburn curls bouncing over empire waist dresses that highlighted a gentle heart-shaped bust. Her hit, The Teddy Bear Song, had warmed a million radios, yet Barbara felt hollow signing drink-stained photographs at 2 a.m. She traded neon lounges for revival tents, letting cotton gowns replace sequins and sunrise light replace spotlights. Applause at the end of a hymn is softer, she decided, but it sinks deeper. Jody joined her exodus, and together they carried harmony into church basements where crockpot suppers replaced champagne riders. Their pilgrimage floated through green rooms, reminding them that stardom without serenity is just noise played loud, haunting empty hotel corridors. Even after the curtain falls, Nashville keeps its own after-hours gossip line humming. Linda Ronstadt, recently quiet on stage, listened through speakerphone as talk show hosts sized up her shifting waistline instead of her platinum plaques. She no longer fit the sample size, and late-night wags revived backstage coke whispers just to fill airtime. Linda shrugged, tied a breezy caftan around a bust that no longer answered to industry tape measures, and recorded an album of Mexican folk songs that outsold the jokes. Loretta, Lynn, and Tanya Tucker carried a rumor war newspapers swore would end with flying microphones. One queen shimmered in floor-length lace, the other prowled in leather pants that clung like scandal. Cameras begged for claws. Instead, they captured polite nods in separate dressing rooms. The real duel was generational. Could a teenage tornado outrun a matriarch who had already turned classified ads into feminist anthems? Both won. Tanya sold out arenas. Loretta sold out history books. Across town, Shelley West faced a quieter foe: pity. Headlines called her an orphan of country music, her shapely bust a sad echo of Dottie's. Shelley answered in glittered corsets, belting pop-flavored hooks beneath disco balls until crowds forgot funerals and remembered to dance. When her single topped the charts, Pity packed its suitcase and left town. After midnight, Opry ushers stack cushioned pews, sweeping up broken picks and runaway hairpins. They know rhinestones hide bruises, satin conceals stitches, and corsets protect hearts as much as posture. What they cannot grasp is why performers keep returning to the spotlight that scalds them. Yet out in the parking lot, a kid strums 3 beginner chords, chest pressed against borrowed mahogany, dreaming of smoke machines and applause. Tomorrow the cycle begins again because legends never stop breeding new legends. They simply pass the glitter like a relay baton. And in that transfer, every curve, every scar, every gasp of gossip gains a second life. Country's heartbeat, after all, isn't just kick drums and fiddles. It's the collective inhale of every dreamer who slides a rhinestone ring onto a microphone and hopes the world will see past the glitter. It thrums in backstage halls where aquanet clouds settle on bent prayer cards, in motel rooms where yesterday's lashes cling to cracked mirrors, and in tour bus bunks where lullabies compete with diesel growls. The tale of these 20 women is a roadmap of scars disguised as signatures, of perseverance stitched through chrome-bright melodies, and of love defying gravity. From Dolly's candy floss corsets to Barbara Fairchild's cotton revival robes, each beauty we met tonight proved that flesh can be both invitation and armor. Management contracts counted bust inches and waist fractions with the zeal of tax lawyers, yet not a single spreadsheet measured the aftershocks of a broken promise or a missed landing strip. Patsy's velvet curves now lie beneath a Virginia hillside. Crystal's river of hair sleeps in a climate-controlled case, and June Carter's freckles glow softly on dusty vinyl sleeves. Their legacies remind us that a voice may echo longer than any silhouette, but the silhouette opens the first door. Would radio have listened to a coal miner's daughter without the glint of handmade sequins? Would tabloids have chased Tammy's abduction tale if her eyes hadn't matched the sapphire satin on her blouse? Exploitation and empowerment danced a two-step nobody fully mastered, yet these women spun through every chorus, refusing to sit out the song. So the next time a jukebox needle settles into a vinyl groove and you catch yourself admiring a publicity photo taped beside the track list, remember what hid behind that perfect pose: bruises under pancake foundation, divorce papers in purse pockets, crash helmets unfastened because hairspray was non-negotiable. Remember, too, the courage and talent that refused to die even when gravity, scandal, or silence claimed the body. Country music still sells heartache as melody, but now you know the down payment was flesh, and the interest is eternal. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.